Welcome to the 28th Judicial District Community Corrections. This video will take you through the policies and procedures regarding your supervision. If you have any questions and/or comments, please refer them to your officer. During this video, there will be handouts for you to follow along with and to sign accordingly. Front desk staff will be available to you upon the end of this video. Please turn in any borrowed devices when you are finished.
Non-discrimination clause. The Office of the 28th Judicial District Community Corrections will not unlawfully discriminate on the basis of actual or perceived race, creed, color, religion, national origin, ancestry, citizenship status, age, disability or handicap, sex, marital status, veteran status, genetic information, or any personal characteristic protected by applicable federal, state, or local laws with respect to all aspects of our program and the services provided therein. Court fees, fines, and restitution. Please be advised, failing to pay all monies owed to the court, as directed by your supervising officer, could result in your case being referred to the 28th Judicial District Debt Collection Program. Should your case be referred to the Debt Collection Program, a fee will be associated and the total amount you owe to the court will be increased. Empty your pockets. All persons entering this office may be subject to a pat-down or visual search of their person and/or belongings and metal detection for any weapons or contraband. No purses, packages, duffel bags, coats, jackets, hoodies, or other like items will be allowed into the office area. Weapons are prohibited in the Office of Community Corrections. Weapons will be confiscated and law enforcement may be contacted. Weapons include, but are not limited to, knives, guns, or any item used to attack and cause physical harm. Drug testing, client acknowledgement statement. As a result of being placed on probation with Community Corrections, you will be required to submit to breath and/or urine tests for the presence of chemicals. By signing this acknowledgement document, you're stating you understand the condition of your probation that requires drug testing, how it is to be carried out, and the consequences of dirty or positive results. All procedures in collecting samples and running tests are done to ensure that any chance of error is removed for your protection as well as the protection of the community. You should always be prepared to give a breath or urine sample at any meeting with your supervising officer or your surveillance officer. Do not urinate just prior to an appointment with your supervising officer. Anytime you're taking in a medication, you will be required to inform your supervising officer of the name of the medication and the amount being used. If you have a history of alcohol or drug abuse, you are not allowed to use any over-the-counter medications or substances that list alcohol, ephedrine, or pseudoephedrine as an ingredient. All collections of urine specimens will be observed by the same-sex staff member. Observation includes personally observing the urine leaving the body into the specimen container. Having an officer in the room is not an attempt to embarrass you, but to ensure that the sample is not contaminated in any way. Prior to collecting a urine sample, you will be asked to wash your hands with soap and water and to dry them. You will then be given a specimen container and asked to fill it at least half full. If you're unable to give a sample on more than one occasion, the supervising officer may request that your case be referred back to court. In the presence of the officer, you will either seal the specimen container, writing your name, date, and time on the container, or you will accompany the officer to the drug test room while the test is run. If the results are negative, you will then be asked to dispose of the sample by pouring it into the toilet, throwing the container away, and flushing the toilet. Community Corrections makes every attempt to use the most reliable testing methods available. If a test is run and it indicates a positive result with which you do not agree, you will have 48 hours to pay the current lab pricing fees to have the sample confirmed at a laboratory. Positive UAs will result in increased reporting and may also lead to referral to court, counseling and evaluations, additional community service hours, jail time, change in curfew, and increased surveillance contacts. You will be assigned a group number by your supervising officer. You will be required to call 826-6579 Monday through Friday from 6 a.m. to 5 p.m. to see if your group number has been designated to give a UA on that date. Collection times for that day are also announced with the day's codes. UA collections will be at Community Corrections at 309 South Broadway. Any deviations from this schedule must be approved through your supervising officer. UAs may also be collected at the discretion of your supervising officer. You will be responsible to pay for your drug testing at the following rates. It's $6 per UA, including the UA that you submit at intake, and current lab pricing fees for any positive UAs that must be submitted to the lab for confirmation. All adult clients are required to pay for all UAs prior to submission, and it is suggested that you keep a check or money order for $6 in your possession at all times. Your supervising officer may request that you submit a UA at any time. Reporting instructions. Appointments. Be on time for your scheduled appointment. Call prior to your appointment if you're late or you need to reschedule. When reporting, come at your scheduled time and there may be a 15-minute wait. After that time, your appointment may be rescheduled. If you report late, the 15-minute rule does not apply. Your ISO can visit you at your home or at your job site, and the visit may be either a scheduled visit or unannounced. What to bring? Paycheck stubs, A or NA attendance cards, educational verification, new address or employment data, medical prescriptions, court payment receipts, or other things as directed. Report forms should be filled out at the request of Community Corrections staff when your ISO is unable to meet with you or as instructed. Emergency. During holidays, weekends, or evenings, when you need to contact Community Corrections, call the following number. Call 785-819-3089. This is the emergency on-call number, and it is to be used only in emergencies. LEO contacts. Local policy and court rule prohibit clients acting as informants for law enforcement unless it is otherwise approved by a judge. You must report all contacts with law enforcement agencies to your ISO immediately following contact. On the next page, you will see a sample of our law enforcement contact report. That is just a sample for you to review, and you do not need to sign that today. We have more of those available to you in the lobby should you have law enforcement contact. You are required to fill out one of those forms the first business day after your law enforcement contact. Community service work. Community service work is work performed for nonprofit organizations with no payment as assigned to a probationer by the court or by their ISO. If the court assigns community service hours, you will be required to perform those hours at an agency approved by Community Corrections. Payment in lieu of community service work shall be prohibited except as allowed by Policy 2.224. Confidentiality. As an adult, any conviction you have is a matter of public record. All Community Corrections clients are listed on CASPER on the Department of Corrections website. As a public agency, Community Corrections has to comply with the Kansas Open Records Act. As a result, information not governed by federal or state confidentiality laws can be released to any individual having a valid reason to request it. It is not a breach of confidentiality for an ISO to ask for or receive information about you from a third party. Officers will not share with you all items contained in the case file, but you may have a copy of documents you signed as part of your supervision. Copy fees may be assessed for requested information. Material written by a third party will need to be obtained directly from that agency. Curfew. As a condition of probation and/or supervision with Community Corrections, you are placed on a curfew of 11 p.m. to 6 a.m. each day of the week. The curfew can be changed at the discretion of your ISO. Employment is required of all clients of the age of 18 or older unless you are unemployable, attending school, or otherwise approved by your ISO. For verification of employment, you are required to provide copies of your pay stubs each payday to your ISO. Further verification will occur by the ISO contacting your employer by phone and letter. House arrest or electronic monitoring may be a condition of probation and/or supervision. House arrest, as defined by KSA 21-4603B, is an individualized program in which the freedom of a probationer is restricted within the community, home, or non-institutional residential placement, and specific sanctions are imposed and enforced. As a condition of your probation, an order of the court, or an internal sanction, you may be placed on GPS monitoring, which will be tracked by an outside agency. These services will be at your own expense. Surveillance program. The surveillance program will help monitor and assist the ISO and the clients in complying with probation conditions, which may include but are not limited to curfew restrictions, random drug and alcohol testing, emergency contact during weekends and holidays. The surveillance officer will provide random checks of the client's home during the week, anytime, day or night. The client is expected to be prepared to give a BAC or a UA upon request of the surveillance officer. Clients are responsible for giving correct address and phone numbers to the Community Corrections staff, having all animals restrained while the surveillance officer is in the home, and provide clear instructions on locating the home and any special instructions if needed to reach a certain apartment number or door to the home. The surveillance officer will report to the ISO any problems at the home of the client, any non-compliance with UA or BAC testing, and all curfew violations. The client will provide to the ISO a list of all persons living in the home, and the client is responsible for informing the persons living in the home about the surveillance program and what is expected of the client in this program. Surveillance officers will have identification with them, including a badge and an ID card. Travel restrictions. You cannot travel outside a 50-mile radius from the city of supervision. To travel outside that 50-mile radius, the client must get the ISO's approval and a travel permit. Travel permits can be granted at the discretion of your ISO, and the following information is needed for such a permit: destination of travel, dates of travel, persons accompany you on the travel, and vehicle make, model, and license tag number. Permits are to be arranged prior to the date needed, except in the case of emergencies. Next is a list of our fees. We charge $6 for UAs. If you are in drug court, you have a $450 flat fee for their fee structuring. and a $200 flat fee for each additional 12 months your probation has to be extended. For our UAs that are sent to the lab, we have a lab cost that is assessed to you based on the cost to us. As an adult client, you will have a one-time $150 supervision fee. And if your case is a Senate Bill 123 case, you will be charged a $300 copay to the Kansas Sentencing Commission. These fees are subject to change. Monies paid to community corrections must be in the form of check or money order. We do not accept cash here. The next 2 paragraphs will tell you who to make your check out to. If you can't remember, please come to the front window and the girls at the front will help you, and there is a $30 service fee on all return checks. Next is a copy of Kansas State Statute 21-4619. Please sign the bottom where it says that you have received a copy of the law, and you will be given a copy of that document before you leave our agency. It deals with expungement of conviction. The next page is a copy of State Statute 21-6304. It deals with criminal possession of a firearm. I'm not going to read that to you, but I can tell you that if you are caught with a firearm in your possession, you will be charged with a new crime. The next page that you see is a copy of our grievance policy dealing with grievances here in our agency. If at any time you feel like you've been treated unfairly by someone in our agency, you can file a grievance against them. The front side of this paper is a copy of our grievance form. On the back side, we have a copy of our grievance form for you to look at. We have more of those available to you in the lobby. You do not need to sign that today. The next page is a copy of State Statute 21-2511, and it deals with collection of DNA. I am not going to read that state statute to you, and I assume that you have had your DNA collected either when they booked you into jail, if you've been on probation before, or if you've been in prison before. The next page will deal with our cognitive groups. We offer a variety of cognitive groups here at our agency. We are a cognitive-based agency, and we believe that thinking drives behavior. Because of that, we have a variety of cognitive groups that you may be referred to by your officer if deemed necessary. The next page talks about our wage attachment option. If you would like your fines and fees to be withheld from your paycheck, you can talk to your officer, and they can file paperwork with the court. It is similar to a child support garnishment. The last page has boxes that run down the left-hand side. I need you to make a check mark in each one of these boxes. It is our intake acknowledgement form, and this form is used to document your orientation regarding specific rules, restrictions, and expectations of being assigned to community corrections. Other documents such as probation conditions or condition of release orders will be reviewed in detail at a later date. The $150 supervision fee has been explained. Travel restrictions and/or travel permits have been reviewed and explained. Reporting instructions and requirements have been reviewed and explained, including how to contact an ISO for emergencies when the office is closed. The process of reporting contacts with law enforcement and the inability to act as an informant for law enforcement have been reviewed and explained. Conditions of employment, including employer contact and proof of employment, have been reviewed and explained. Curfew restrictions have been reviewed and explained. The process and policy for making a complaint have been reviewed and explained. The surveillance component has been reviewed and explained. The process and expense of drug testing has been reviewed and explained. The requirement when ordered of electronic monitoring has been reviewed and explained, and the requirement when ordered of community service work has been explained. The health history, which is the pink form that you filled out, has been filled out completely and accurately, and the screening form, which is the yellow form that you filled out, has been filled out completely and accurately. No purchase will be made by a client over the amount of $100 without the ISO's approval. The client has been notified of DNA collection, which would be at the client's own expense per KSA 21-2511A3. Any information acquired from other sources will not be released to a client, and this includes reports such as pre-sentence investigations, substance abuse evaluations, psychological evaluations, and reports from treatment professionals. Any public information may be released to a client, and this includes any documentation filed with the clerk of the district court. Documents generated by Community Corrections will be released at Community Corrections' discretion. The client's been notified that residency is required to be in Saline or Ottawa County. Any exceptions to this must be approved prior to the change by the supervising officer. If you've been convicted of a sex crime, you may be subject to a computer monitoring program that monitors your personal computer usage. You will be responsible for all fees incurred for this program, and this will be explained to you further once your case has been assigned to an officer. The client has been made aware that the cognitive groups are required classes that every client will be mandated to attend. Failure to show or unexcused absences for scheduled classes may result in 25 additional hours of community service work being assessed. The client has been notified that while on probation, the use of alcohol and drugs is prohibited. The client has been notified of the agency's non-discrimination clause. As a condition of probation, it is stated that you will comply with your supervising officer. If deemed appropriate by your supervising officer, you may be referred to the various resources both in-house and outside this agency. I hereby acknowledge that I have received from Community Corrections the admission folder and its contents, and that I understand the information contained therein, and add my signature as testimony of same.
Thank you for your participation in this video intake. Your assigned officer should be with you shortly to schedule your next appointment, or additional information will be provided to you. Please return all borrowed equipment and turn in all signed paperwork to front desk staff. If you choose to do so, please complete the included questionnaire about the intake video process and also include any questions and answers you believe would be beneficial for the FAQ section. Thank you again and welcome to the 28th Judicial District Community Corrections.